So ladies and gentlemen, it is no secret that the Cowboys have had one of their more productive off seasons in quite some time. Arguably their most productive off season since the 90s, depending on who you ask. But today, we're here to talk about, did the Cowboys have the best off season throughout the NFL, or one of the best throughout the NFL? That's been a question that's been brought up throughout several circles, and we're here to dive into one of the articles done by Blogging the Boys that posed this question, and we're going to just kind of think about it and just talk, hey, what have the Cowboys done to really set themselves apart from the rest of the league and obviously the NFC, because we know that there's a lot of moving parts, and we're not at the draft yet, so some of these teams are kind of banking on the draft. But before we get started, if you guys can hit the like button, that'd be greatly appreciated. Let's try to hit 100 likes on this video. I'm going to try doing like goals. Let's see if we can get that done. Also, subscribe if you're new. And hit that notification bell as well. Over, 78% of you guys watching, a large chunk of you, are not subscribed. And a lot of you, watch my videos and come back. So if that's something that you like, why don't you subscribe and stick around? So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and pull up the article by Blogging the Boys, and we'll further discuss this interesting question, because I never thought in my wildest dreams that we would be having this entire topic brought up. Alrighty guys, so here is the article. How the Dallas Cowboys are having one of the best off seasons across the NFL. The Dallas Cowboys front office typically gets a lot of criticism for the way they handle the off season leading up to the draft, but not this year. And this was done by Chris Halling, or Haling, however you pronounce it. I believe it's Halling, or at Cowboys Squad on Twitter. So thank you so much for this article. This was actually shared to me, and someone wanted me to kind of think, how do I look at this front office and what they've done? Is it good, bad, whatever the case may be? I'm not going to hate what they've done, because that would be ridiculous. The Cowboys have done exactly what they wanted to do, but let's see what this article says, and maybe did the Cowboys really have one of the better off seasons, or the best off season throughout the NFL? Let's have that conversation. So, with it being less than a month away from the NFL draft, the Dallas Cowboys have had a phenomenal offseason. An organization that typically gets a lot of flack from their fan base and media across the league for their lack of aggressiveness and activity have been doing exactly the opposite this offseason. The front office came into this offseason with a tough task. They needed to bring back several key starters on the defensive side of the ball, as well as find a way to improve the team so that they can make a deeper playoff push in the 2023 season. We've had those conversations. The Cowboys were able to bring back essentially all of their key defensive free agents: Donovan Wilson, Leighton Vander Esch, Jonathan Hankins, Dante Fowler on team-friendly contract. And you look at the contract details, really team-friendly. Leighton Vander Esch's was, below market value. Donovan Wilson's was right around market value. Jonathan Hankins was basically, one of those vet minimum salaries. And then Dante Fowler had a vet minimum, but again, he has the ability to get more playing time incentives. So that was really one of the key things, is they brought back key players on their defense, which, brought them to that elite status and brought them into, hey, can the Cowboys defense really carry the load? So let's keep moving forward with what they're talking about. It is fair to assume that the Cowboys were able to retain all of these defensive weapons on team-friendly contracts because of the impact of defensive coordinator Dan Quinn. The Cowboys being able to keep him in Dallas despite receiving head coaching offers from other teams gives the defense a sense of continuity and allows them to continue building something great. And that's true. Like, that, in my opinion, was probably one of the biggest retentions this offseason, was keeping Dan Quinn on that side of the ball and let him build what he continues to build as we now go into year 3 of Dan Quinn. And we're seeing improvement, and now that you're bringing all of these guys back and you've retained more than what you've lost on the defensive side of the ball, you really can go into this draft and either upgrade, or you can focus everything on the offensive side of the ball, which many argue you need to do a lot of work on. And they'll get into this most likely. I haven't read this article whatsoever, just a blind reaction here. So, moving forward, the front office also made several decisions on the offensive side of the ball that will turn out to be wise for the team. They were able to rework the deal of Tyron Smith, bring him back without affecting the cap number as much as it would have. His new contract is a 1-year deal worth $6 million with the max value of $17 million through playing time and playoff win incentives. It is a great deal for the front office as they bring back a veteran member of the offensive line, and they design the contract in a way where Smith has to stay healthy to make the most of his money, and the team also made a difficult decision to move on from fan favorite Ezekiel Elliott by releasing him, a move that may have been difficult from an emotional standpoint, but was the right decision from a financial standpoint. And to pause right there, that is correct. The Cowboys move on from a bad running back contract. They did franchise tag Tony Pollard, which, however you want to view it, in the short term, cool, but in the long term, you give yourself a little bit of time to fix up that position. You can draft a running back, right? You can sign someone on the cheap next year, or you can try to get a deal that's cheaper for Pollard next year. I don't know. But the Cowboys have got themselves flexibility. I'm not a fan of paying running backs. However, this is a short-term situation for the Cowboys as we stand right now. And moving on from Zeke, it sucks, but that was the right thing to do. And then for Tyron Smith, fantastic job by this front office to open up some more cap space, but also make sure that it's not going to impact the team moving forward. And also, it's incentivized for him if he can stay healthy and he has playing time under his belt, he's going to get more money. So great job by the Cowboys on that end to, retain Tyron Smith without letting him go, but also reducing his cap hit. And, you get rid of a guy in Zeke who you can look to upgrade from considering what he was. Yes, the 12 touchdowns are a key component. I'm not saying that it's bad. However, when you really look at it, Ronald Jones can give you that same type of impact, or someone in the draft at this point in Zeke's career. And I'm not saying Zeke is bad. It's just you have to look at the situation for what it is. So let's move on in this article. If the Cowboys made all of these moves and had done nothing else, many fans would have considered it a successful offseason. I disagree. Just my personal opinion, because you retaining players and, doing addition by subtraction isn't a successful offseason. You needed to still get a wide receiver too, a cornerback too. You had things you needed to address, but the Cowboys did exactly that. So let's go ahead and move on. They brought back all of their key players on the defense without breaking the bank on any of them. However, the Cowboys have made two of their biggest moves in recent memory through trades. This is huge. The first move the Cowboys made for an outside player this offseason was trading for Pro Bowl cornerback Stephon Gilmore from the Indianapolis Colts. Not only was this an incredible move for the Cowboys because it filled their CB2 position across from Trevon Diggs, but they also gave virtually nothing for him. They sent the Colts a 5th-round compensatory pick in exchange for the talented cornerback. Not only will Gilmore be likely the best cornerback too across the entire NFL this season, but he's able to provide valuable leadership to the secondary and can mentor Diggs to being an even better cornerback than he already is. So with the Gilmore trade, what I need people to understand is that Stephon Gilmore is not the DPOY player he once was. He is not in that prime. However, he is going to be one of the better, if not the best cornerback too in the league, depending again on who you ask. We got to see how he looks, but on paper, the Cowboys got better at cornerback too. They went from Anthony Brown to a guy in Stephon Gilmore, which, by the way, you're not asking him to be cornerback one. You're just asking him to be better than Anthony Brown, which, if Anthony Brown stayed healthy, I think the Cowboys defense would have been really good down the stretch, because you saw how things, really fell apart, and you kind of having to go through that rotation. But here we stand here today with Stephon Gilmore as a Cowboy, which is awesome. But again, we need to temper our expectations. You're not getting an elite player. You're getting a guy who is good enough to get the job done. And I'm not trying to downplay Stephon Gilmore. It's just that's the truth. So don't let people think, oh, he's super elite at this point in time. We got a defensive player of the year. No, you got a guy that's going to be awesome at cornerback too. But the Cowboys didn't stop with that move, though. They followed it up by trading for the speedy veteran wide receiver Brandon Cooks from the Houston Texans. Cooks has felt like a great fit for Dak Prescott for a while now, and if you've been following me, you know that I'm a huge fan of Brandon Cooks and have been for quite some time, and the Cowboys have shown interest at the NFL trade deadline in the 2022 season, and we talked about that. And they were originally going to give up like a 2nd-round pick, then it turned into a 3rd-round pick, and then the deal fell through because of the whole cap compensation and who was going to take what. And here the Cowboys go, and although no deal came from that, and it hurt them in the short term, the Cowboys got their receiver in Cooks for an incredible value. They sent the Houston Texans a 5th-round pick in 2023 and a 6th-round pick in the 2024 draft. So the Cowboys got their Amari Cooper-like deal for a guy who is on the other side of 30 or soon to be. And again, you're not asking this dude to be wide receiver 1. You're asking this guy to be a reliable wide receiver 2 or 3, depending on how Gallup looks and how Lamb has been going up throughout his career at this juncture. So you're getting Mr. Consistent in Cooks, and you have Lamb who's ascending into an all-pro talent, and then you kind of protect yourself from Gallup to where if Gallup isn't ready to step up to be wide receiver 2, you have to ask him, okay, can you be a wide receiver 3? So I think that that's really where the Cowboys really covered their bases, because you're getting a guy that, by the way, is not a traditional Cowboys wide receiver for what they look for. He's 5'10". He's a speedy guy. He can give you a downfield threat. And that, offense that Mike McCarthy's trying to build, the West Coast scheme, he fits that. So you get a guy that teams have to pay attention to. They can't just be like, okay, we're going to cover Schultz, we're going to cover Lamb, and that's it. You can't do that when you're going up against the Cowboys now. And also giving a guy that can take the top off of defense, you can now do things that you should have done with your offense last year. So not only, let's see here, trading for Cooks gives the Cowboys a reliable veteran who can create separation for the Dak Prescott-like Cowboys offense. It'll be a great target behind wide receiver, like I just said. But not only have the Cowboys brought back their players on team-friendly contracts, giving them continuity, they have also improved their roster through good value trades. And the Dallas Cowboys front office deserves an A+ grade for what they've done leading up to the draft, as they've had the best offseason across the NFL. So taking a look at this tracker that's been provided. So the Cowboys have retained and added more than they have lost. And by the way, you have to also add Carlos Watkins to that list. But the fact is the Cowboys at this point in time have basically retained the same team and added to it, arguably upgrading at key positions. The only place that I would argue they downgraded at are special teams, because you did lose some guys there and a kicker, which you should be able to get in this upcoming draft, after the fact, whatever you decide to do, get a veteran. But also, the left guard position is something you need to address. And it's not like a pressing you have to, do something in that first round. You can if you want, but there are guys that you can maybe get in the second round, or whoever you like, you can get and ultimately plug that hole, and you're set. So, that kind of begs the question, okay, did the Cowboys have the best offseason throughout the NFL? I mean, you guys can ask, me that, but I want to ask you guys that as well, because I feel like the Cowboys did have one of the better off seasons throughout the NFL. When you look at the NFC, right, or you can just look at the NFC East in general, I think the Eagles, they're a wait and see, because a lot of their draft picks are going to be that determine that answer. They did lose a bunch of starters on defense. They did lose coordinators. And, it's not like, and they did lose one lineman on their offensive line, but it's not like that they're a terrible team, but you lose a lot of that, and they didn't really do a whole lot to replace that talent. They did keep a couple guys before, I thought they were going to lose, but here we stand here today, so we'll see how they do in the draft. So they're kind of wait and see mode, but you can argue that their offseason was like a C+ kind of offseason. Then again, I'm not going to act like an expert on there. I'm just kind of giving you a brief synopsis from my perspective. I could be wrong, but they're kind of wait and see with the draft. The Giants, you bring back Daniel Jones. You tag Saquon Barkley. You got Darren Waller in here. I believe they added some linebacker depth with Okereke, I think his name is. If I got the wrong linebacker. My point is they did add some pieces, and they do like they're coming into their own as their rebuild was ahead of schedule last season. But the thing is I think they're going to be very predicated on where Daniel Jones is as a quarterback. If Daniel Jones can improve, that's great, but he is, we talk about the quarterback and is he good enough to get you there? I think that you saw that he can be a good quarterback. And you saw it in his rookie year. He showed glimpses of being that guy. The problem is we don't know where he's at, and also when you look at the weapons, you kind of need to add a little bit more. So they're wait and see with their draft as well. But a lot of churn and burn with that roster. As for Washington, in a bit of a state of flux right now at the quarterback position. And, I haven't seen a lot of moves they've made. I'm not, again, if you're a Washington fan watching this, I just want to make it clear that I'm not going to put a full-on grade. Like, it's basically C's or ungradable because I haven't really been paying attention. The Eagles, obviously with them being in the Super Bowl, it's interesting to see how that team's going through it. But they did add Eric Bieniemy, which is going to be huge for that, depending on, what he's going to do. So you look at the Cowboys. The Cowboys have ridded themselves of a Kellen Moore offense, and they're going to be changing to a West Coast scheme, which should assist them. You got that. You arguably have one of the better quarterbacks in the conference. You've retained all of your key defensive guys. You added on the offensive side of the ball. You upgraded cornerback too. Realistically, the Cowboys had the best offseason of the NFC East. And then you look at the NFC as a whole. I mean, I don't see any needle movers from the NFC South. I didn't see any needle movers from the North, really, to be completely frank with you there. And, you look at the, I guess you could say Chicago, but it's whatever. They're still kind of going through the motions there. They're a wait and see. The West, you have San Francisco. Seattle is doing their thing, rebuilding. The Cardinals and Rams took a turn for the worse. So realistically, you can make the argument the Cowboys have had the best offseason in the NFC. As for the AFC, I can't answer that. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but I think that you look at what the Cowboys have done, they have definitely put themselves in a position to be a possible contender in 2023. I'm not saying they are one. We'll see how the schedule looks. We'll see what happens after the draft. But the Cowboys really are positioning themselves quite nicely for a run in 2023 if things pan out. And me saying that, they're going to fall apart and go like 1-16. Now, all joking aside, let's see how the draft goes. But if I had to give this grade for the Cowboys right now, it's an A. I don't really give an A+ because an A+ is kind of like we have to look back in hindsight and see how things go, right? A+ is perfect, but there is no perfect grade unless the proof is in the pudding there. So that's where I stand there. And thank you guys so much for tuning into this longer form video. If you guys did enjoy it, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and hit the notification bell. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.